thank you everyone for coming, and thank you Frank and Chris. They did much thing for the book to be out, and I'm very happy that Andrea can fly to Hong Kong and join this event with me. First of all, I will give a reading. What I want to share with you is a fiction I wrote in 8 years ago, and it is called Wooden Chair Forest. And this is a story about a man. He is being unemployed. After graduation, he couldn't find a job. And after a period of struggle and confusion, he determined to be a chair. He wanted to be a chair, and he found out that all he wanted to do is to be a chair. So I would like to share with you part of the story. I will read in Chinese, in Cantonese, and after that, Andrea, the translator, will share with you the English version. 南木耳子，從舌根一直蔓延至味蕾和牙齒的酸苦，就像是對未來遙賦意義的暗示。只是林木一旦陷入思索的狀態，母親的目光便會從屋子的暗角朝他打量。他的背部經常承受這種目光，使他從小就感到這目光一直不動聲色地催趕他。午飯的時候，林木忍不住向林園提出疑問：是烹調的方式改變了，還是更換了另一個牌子的調味粉？這陣子無論吃效的是什麼，我只是嘗到果核、泥巴和煙灰的味道。林園的眼光從沒離開電視屏幕，那裏正在播映烹飪節目《兒時館的牛扒》。他的聲線低沉而溫柔。你弄錯了，那不是食物的味道，那是沒有工作的人因無聊而引起的口腔分泌物。林木便保持緘默，一點一點地把菜吃光。那年夏天，林木置身在一個沒有終點的暑假裏。自此，假期便翻出了另一層意義。此前，他認為假期是一條清涼的管道，人們通過那裏，再走出來，就會到達一個從未踏足的地方。然而最後的暑假並不一樣，置身其中的林木知道，管道的另一端是一個漆黑的密室，那密室比他認識的世界還要大。他將會一直待在那裏。那段日子，他甚至不用調校鬧鐘，便能在特定的時間醒來，坐在屋子中央的飯桌前，翻閱一份由職位空缺拼湊而成的報章，直至指頭被灰黑的油墨沾滿。他必須那樣做，不然母親的目光便會再次爬到他的背上。只有在5間劇場播映完畢，林園陷入睡眠的片刻，林木才可以把頭和手伸到窗外，放肆地感受陽光的兇猛。暑假開始後的第230天，空氣污染指數、紫外線指數和失業率都達到了那年的最高點。但林木並不認為是偶然或巧合。他對哥哥林發說：紫外線和空氣污染只會對沒有工作而在街上遊蕩的人產生影響。但林發對於天氣的變化卻沒有任何深刻的感受。自從城市的角落藏滿丟失了工作的人，林發的收入便趨向穩定。睡眠以外的時間，他都穿上深藍色或深灰色的西裝，站在一個有空氣調節的房間裏，向着大批眼神空虛的人講授關於找到希望、 便能找緊工作的道理。根據林法的說法，即使這裏的工廠和投資像流過的水那樣一去不返，可以建起高樓大廈的空地越來越少，人們也沒有必要煩惱。只要他們能培養出一種像幻覺那樣令人鼓舞的希望，便會發現已經失去了或從不曾出現的東西，其實一直在他們身旁。無疑，那房間對林木來說是非常寒冷的地方。當他坐在一群沒精打采的人之間，他驚訝地發現每個人的面容和神態異常相像。他看見林法站在遙遠的講台上，就像多月前的一個黃昏。他遠遠地看見林法站在交通擠塞的馬路之旁，以沙啞的聲音重複地呼喊流動電話月費計劃的優惠和價錢。然而他的聲音總是被四周鋪天蓋地的雜音壓倒，而顯得非常微弱。可是在那個不斷輸出冷風的房間內，林法的聲音卻發揮着收集渙散心智的作用。推銷員找不到生意，不是因為他們的遊說技巧；議員得不到選民支持，不是因為政治智慧；醫護人員錯誤地分配藥物，不是因為對藥物認識太少。林法停頓的時刻，使林木覺得他是習慣在黑暗中工作的催眠師。只是所有人都在扮演着另一個人，沒有人知道自己是什麼。林法像在訓練一批精良的馬匹般發出命令：不要再想另一個人的事，告訴我你們是什麼。林木原以為那裏坐着的是一堆冬眠的蛇，可是忽然有人站起來說：我是魔術師。乾燥的冷空氣使林木不斷咳嗽，隨之而來是乏力的叫喊此起彼落。我是個精算師，我是按摩女郎，我是個投機主義者，我是個騙子，我是爸爸，我是苦力，我是個女的，我是個小孩，我是廉價勞工，我是妓女。林木開始感到昏昏欲睡，實在他並不知道林法真正要告訴他的是什麼。林法只是要他們謹記，有時候一切都是幻覺。失業率的上升速度微微放緩的時候，林木再次想起兩個不同的林法。當苦澀的分泌物黏附在他的口腔，成了他身體的一部分，林木以為自己會遺忘苦的存在。然而某天早上，他自夢中轉醒，日益加劇的腥苦味道就像厚繭覆蓋了他的舌頭。他在洗手盆上洶湧地嘔吐後，惡心感仍然像巨浪衝擊着他，直至他以一把椅子的姿態坐在地上，一切才慢慢地緩和下來。我是一件死物，他這樣自我安慰，拼息享受作為椅子的樂趣。雖然那時候並沒有另一個身體坐在他身上。他給情人撥了一通電話，告訴他已經想到如何斷絕二人之間的關係。相信我，那不會有任何痛苦。他以想念對方時的溫柔語調說。他是第一個使林木確認自己是一把椅子的人。那段日子，他們無法到任何地方，包括咖啡店、餐館、戲院或超級市場，因為他們口袋裏的零錢甚至不足以支付交通工具的費用。雖然假期已延續了100天，但他們仍然找不到一份可換取金錢的工作。正午時分，當人們走在熱氣蒸騰的街道上，都看不到自己的影子。林木便會步行1小時，走到他的家裏。他們無法忍受有任何一天看不見對方。雖然他們沒有擁抱的習慣， 甚至不是時常會升起交談的慾望。然而一旦看見對方，他便無法壓抑坐在他身上的衝動。因而林木培養了新的興趣。每次前往他的居所途中，他總是先在附近的大型家具店閒蕩，駐足久久地凝視一堆姿態各異的椅子。每夜在臨睡前的1小時進行模仿椅子的練習。林木當時對自己說：關於椅子的練習，只是為了促進血液循環。然而無數下午的自由時光，林木藉着腰板坐在椅子上，閉上眼睛，幻想自己跟椅子已融為一體。他的手臂充當椅子的扶手，小腿和腳掌成了他的腳踏，而他身上的肌肉使他想起柔軟的熟指。他不止一次低聲地嘆息，從沒有一張椅子像他那樣舒適而溫暖。那時候，林木對於自己是什麼東西毫無興趣，只是他自出生開始便理所當然地被培育成人。當他指出他是一張出色的椅子，他沒來由地感到一種違反本性的喜悅。My sharing part is here. Thank you. And Andrea, it is your part.
Okay. Okay, happy to. Thanks.
And here's the translation into English. The bitterness that spread from the back of his tongue all the way to his taste buds and teeth was like a hint of things to come, heavy with meaning. When Woods fell into a reverie, his mother would watch him from a dim corner of their room, sizing him up. His back often bore the weight of that gaze, and since childhood he felt it prodding him without emotion. At lunchtime, he couldn't help but ask her, "Have you changed the way you cook this? Or have you switched brands of seasoning? Lately, no matter what I eat, all I taste is fruit pits, mud, and smoke." Mrs. Wood's eyes remained fixed on a cooking show, Steak at 2:30. Her voice was soft and low. "You're mistaken. It's not the food you're tasting, but oral secretions produced by the boredom of being unemployed." Woods fell into silence, and one morsel at a time, he cleaned his plate. That summer, Forrest Woods found himself on an endless vacation, and from then on the word vacation took on a whole new layer of meaning. In the past, he thought of vacations as cool, refreshing tubes. People passed through them and came out the other end, arriving at a place in which they'd never before set foot. But that last summer holiday was quite different, and Forrest Woods, who was smack in the middle of it, knew that at the other end of the tube lay a secret, pitch-black room. That room was even larger than the world he currently knew, and he was destined to reside there in perpetuity. He didn't even have to set his alarm clock that summer, but woke up every day at a fixed time, sat himself down at the dining table at the center of the room, and flipped through the newspaper, which was a patchwork of help wanted ads, until his fingertips were completely blackened with newsprint. He had to do this, or else his mother's gaze would start crawling up his back. It wasn't until the noon hour soap opera ended and Mrs. Woods had dropped off to sleep that Forrest Woods could finally stick his head and hands out the window, indulging himself in the fierceness of the sunlight. On the 230th day after the beginning of the summer holiday, the air pollution index, the UV index, and the unemployment rate had all reached their highest points of the year, and Forrest Woods didn't think this was an accident or a coincidence. He said to his older brother, Rich, Ultraviolet rays and air pollution only affect the people hanging around on the street because they're out of work. But the changing weather hadn't made much of an impression on Rich Woods. With every nook and cranny in town stuffed with the unemployed, Rich Woods' income grew increasingly stable. When he wasn't asleep, he was standing in an air-conditioned room in front of a group of vacant-eyed people wearing a dark blue or dark gray suit and lecturing them on the principle that, if they could find hope, they would be able to secure employment. As Rich Woods explained it, even if local factories and investments were like water that had flowed past and would never return, and even if there were fewer and fewer empty lots where tall buildings could be built, there was no need to worry. All people had to do was nurture a hope as exciting as fantasy, and they would discover that the things they'd lost, or that had never materialized, were in fact right beside them and had been there all along. Undoubtedly, this room was a very chilly place for Forrest Woods, and sitting among those listless individuals, he was amazed to discover they were all remarkably similar in their features and demeanor. He saw Rich standing on the faraway podium, just as he had glimpsed him from a distance many months before, at sundown, standing at the side of a traffic-clogged road, shouting hoarsely, repeating the same features and prices over and over for mobile phones, monthly plans. His feeble voice was always drowned out by the pervasive din. But in that room, with its constant stream of cold air, Rich's voice displayed the ability to bring together all of these feeble wills. When salesmen can't find business, it's not because of their skills of persuasion. When politicians can't gain support from voters, it's not because of their political wisdom. When healthcare workers prescribe the wrong medication, it's not because they don't know enough about pharmaceuticals. Rich paused briefly. And in that moment, Forrest Woods realized that his brother was a hypnotist accustomed to working in the dark. Here's the thing. Everybody is pretending to be someone else, and nobody knows what they really are. As if he were training a herd of fine horses, Rich called out a command. Don't think about anyone else. Just tell me, what are you? Forrest had the impression that the room was occupied by a heap of hibernating snakes. But then someone stood up and said, I am a magician. The dry, cold air made Forrest start coughing. Immediately, one after another, came the tired shouts. I am an actuary. I am a masseuse. I'm an opportunist. I'm a con artist. I am a father. I'm a coolie. I am a female. I'm a child. I'm a cut-rate laborer. I'm a prostitute. Forrest began to feel groggy. In truth, he hadn't the faintest idea what Rich was trying to tell him. Rich simply wanted him to remember that there are times when everything is an illusion. As the unemployment rate started rising more slowly, Forrest Woods was reminded once again of the two different Riches. When the bitter secretions coating the inside of his mouth became a part of his body, Forrest Woods thought he might be able to forget that bitterness existed. But one morning he awakened from a dream and discovered the rank and fishy taste, which had been growing steadily stronger, now covered his tongue like a callus. He threw up violently in a wash basin, but the nausea continued to batter him like massive waves, and it wasn't until he sat down on the floor and assumed the shape of a chair that everything finally calmed down. I am an inanimate object. Comforting himself thus and holding his breath, he savored the happiness of being a chair, even though, at that moment, there wasn't another body sitting on his body. He called his lover on the phone and told her he'd figured out how to break off their relationship. Believe me, it won't hurt a bit. He spoke in the same gentle tone he used when he was missing her. She was the first person who made Forrest Woods realize that he was a chair. There had been a stretch of time when they couldn't go anywhere, be it a cafe, a restaurant, the theater, or the supermarket, because they didn't even have enough money in their pockets to cover the cost of transportation. Although the holiday had been going for 100 days already, neither of them had been able to find work that they could exchange for money. At noon, when people on the steaming hot thoroughfares couldn't see their own shadows, Forrest Woods would walk an hour to her house. The two of them couldn't bear to go a day without seeing each other, even though they weren't in the habit of cuddling, nor did they often feel the desire to converse. On the other hand, the moment she saw him, she couldn't resist the urge to sit down on him. Woods encouraged this new interest, and whenever he went to see her, he would stop along the way to browse at a large furniture store, taking time to gaze at the massive chairs with their varied postures. And every night, in the last hours before he went to bed, he practiced imitating the chairs. At the time, he told himself that chair practice was something he did to improve his circulation. Nonetheless, during his countless free afternoons, he would sit straight back in a chair, close his eyes, and imagine that he and the chair had merged into one. His arms served as armrest, his feet and lower legs became her footrest, and his flesh reminded her of a soft cushion. More than once, she sighed quietly that there had never been a chair as warm and comfortable as he was. At that point, Forrest Woods didn't have the slightest interest in what he was. After all, he had been raised since birth to be a human being as a matter of course. When she pointed out what an outstanding chair he was, he felt immeasurably happy.
The second short story I would like to share with you is Notes on an Epidemic. But before I read out the Chinese version, I would like to share with you the process I wrote these short stories. A very brief sharing. Actually, Kite's Family, the collection of short stories, was finished 8 years ago. At that time, I was always thinking about I was always want to write something about the life of a woman in a modern society. And I was interested in the role of woman in a family and what they did to fulfill the expectation of the society. I was also curious about their struggle and anxiety towards their family or social life. The first story I finished in this book is Kite's Family. All the female characters in this short story came from the same family, and they have the same illness, the same disease. The disease is when they grow up or grow old, they will keep gaining weight and they will become fatter and fatter. For example, the grandma in the story who gets so fat that she occupied the whole room and no space remaining. After I finished this story, I set it out to Taiwan to join a literary competition, and after that I won the prize of New Writers Novella, and after I've got the prize, I decided to spend most of my time to write, so I didn't go out to find a full-time job and start to be a freelance writing tutor instead. From that time onwards, I finished the remaining stories in this book one by one. And the last one is the Notes on an Epidemic. To me, Kite's Family is very important as it represents a transition in my life. Of course, in my life of writing. Before I started to write this book, I was always confused that what should I do, and I kept asking myself for so many years that should I just find a full-time job and work overtime every day and have no time to write, or have very little time to write, Or should I just do what I really want to do, just write what I want to write? But after I finish the book, I have an answer, and the answer is very clear that the struggle period of this issue is over. I'm not saying that I've got the prize, so I have a chance to publish the book and the problem is solved. What I want to say is I find a voice in writing. I find a voice from my heart to my words to my books and in writing. So I have a new path of writing. So I would like to share with you the last story I finished in this book, Notes on an Epidemic。幸存的人在一次漫長的感冒中醒來後，全都發現市街的風景轉變了。我無法清楚地解釋那是一種怎樣的變化，只是街上的人那種呆滯的神情改變了，或者只是急促的腳步慢了下來，或微笑的方式轉變了，還是身體語言的問題，我不知道。外面是一種奇怪的氣氛。房間內第一個把頭探出窗外的人說出這句話之後，病人紛紛支起身子，離開了自己的床，輪流站在窗前，觀察窗外一條擠滿車輛的馬路，但沒有一個人能說出任何話。或許起了變化的只是我們。當寂靜的空氣像水銀那樣沉進我們的皮膚內，令人快要窒息時，終於有人說出這句使我們安心的話，並且得到幾個人的回應。是的，或者是我們自己改變了而已。他們說，當中夾雜了一點笑聲，那意味着我們終於可以變回原來的樣子，或截然不同的另一個樣子，最後成為外面世界的一部分。事實上，我們的改變必定比自己所知道的還要多。自從空氣中病菌的含量漸漸增加，透進了城市的每一個角落，從一個城市飄到另一個城市，滲入了我們的腸門、呼吸系統、血液甚至分泌之中。有些人死去，另一些人被送進這所氣味刺鼻的建築物。為數不少的病人感染併發症，另外的人服食了大量藥物，原因不明地活了下來，變化便無法挽回地展開了。人們真正懼怕的或許並不是死亡，而是某種身不由己的改變。與我們熟面的人還能認出我們嗎？臨床的病人在黑暗中發出了這樣的問題，他說出了我們的困惑，但沒有一個人能解答他。困惑的感覺因護士而起。那天下午，被白色口罩遮去了半張臉，只露出一雙眼睛的護士走進房間，告訴我們必須在明天中午前離開這裡。他短促的話就像一道命令：你們已經康復了。睡在房間角落的病人隨即叫喊：可是體內的病菌已經清除了嗎？我們可以通過出境關卡回到原來的住處嗎？這裡已經沒有多餘的病床。這是護士轉身走出房間之前給我們唯一的回答。房間的門被關上了以後，室內顯得更陰暗。夜裡是不安的氣氛，而不是疼痛的關節，使我們難以入眠。我想起家裡那頭黑色的貓，它總是喜歡睡在我的床上。那所只住着我一個人的房子，電燈維持一種微弱的光度，床褥是一種熟悉的硬度，沒有多餘的聲音，也沒有陌生的氣息。但不知打從什麼時候開始，我寧願留在這個充滿消毒藥水氣味的房間內，跟另外7個話不投機的人睡在一起。或許只是過量的藥物和消毒劑， 削弱了我們的免疫力，才會令人覺得一切都好像面目全非了。過了很久，睡在我對面的人這樣說，另一個人也說，離開這裏之後，我們便會回復從前一般強壯。入睡之前，我想，驅之不散的憂慮，或許只是患上來歷不明的感冒後一種尋常的後遺症。感冒的源頭已被發現，那不是沒有來由的疾病。主診醫生坐在溫度過低的房間這樣說。改變或許是從我注意到這個城市僻靜的角落，藏着許多灰白的建築物開始。結束旅程之前的一天，持續了1個多星期的咳嗽和眩暈漸漸地改變。咽喉的疼痛膨脹得比我身處的世界更大。我進入了1、2計程車，卻無法說出醫院的正確位置。只是任由駕車的人把我送到他認為我該去的地方。他們把我抬進一個只有1扇窗子的房間，脫去我的衣服，在我的身體上插上各式喉管，直至皮膚布滿紫藍色的瘀痕。每天在固定的時間，給我吃下不同顏色的藥物，並以他們的方式抹擦我的身子，而我感到一切順理成章。既沒有什麼不好，也不可能存在更好的。這必然是藥物的功效。我看着主診醫生方形的眼鏡，便肯定了這一點。孤獨的人總是容易染上頑強的感冒菌。主診醫生解釋，即使體內的病菌暫時受到控制，但不代表已經康復，還有超過1半的機會復發。只有改變生活習慣，才有痊癒的可能。經常處於孤獨狀態的人，免疫系統混亂，他們的身體變成了各種疾病潛伏的地方。他像背誦一節課文那樣，描述關於細菌的事情。他的身後有一道雪白的牆壁，牆上掛着色彩奪目的海報，有一張繪畫了人體的橫截面，羅列了不同的器官以及它們的名稱。另一張標示了幾種預防疾病的方法，包括洗手、漱口和戴上口罩。我隱約感到醫生話裏的道理，只有加強人們的關係網絡，才能使感冒停止蔓延。醫生說話時的力度，使我的耳朵產生不真實的鳴響。護士帶着我離開他的辦公室，走進另一個房間辦理出院手續。他們給我發還入院時的衣服，再把一個從不屬於我的白信封塞進我的手裏。處於康復期的感染者，沒有一個會回到原來居住的城市，沒有人可以肯定那裏藏着多少致命的病菌。護士把醫生的話再說一遍後，把信封內的鑰匙掏出來。我們已為你預備了新的房子，那裏除了基本的家具，還有一個父親、婆婆、丈夫和弟弟。他寫下了新居的地址後，再三叮囑我，在那所房子裏好好休養，沒有什麼比健康更重要。我穿着沾滿醫院氣味的毛衣，握着白信封，走過狹長的走廊，走廊盡頭是一點光，光的所在是一個露天停車場，停車場之旁是一條車子川流不息的馬路，那裏是醫院以外的世界。我站在馬路中央的安全島上，回過頭去，發現給我送藥的護士、辦理手續的護士、主診醫生和清潔工人都在走廊盡頭向我揮手。他們揮手的幅度一樣，皎潔的眼神也有一點相像。我忽然懷疑，他們根本就是來自同一個家族裏的人。
Notes on an epidemic. The survivors awakened from their long bouts with the virus to find the downtown streets completely transformed. I can't put my finger on what's changed. The pedestrians' dull eyes seem different, though it could just be that people aren't walking at their old frenetic pace. Or maybe it's their smiles. Maybe it's their body language. I don't know. But something's strange. This is what the first person to stick his head out the window said, and very soon all the other patients had sat up, gotten out of their beds, and were taking turns standing at the window to survey the traffic-clogged street. Nobody was able to make a definitive pronouncement. The still, heavy air sank into our skin like mercury, and just as we were starting to feel ourselves suffocating, someone offered these words of comfort. Maybe we've changed. There were a handful of responses, along with scattered laughter. Yes, maybe we're the ones who've changed. That's it. Either we'll recover our old selves, or else we'll morph into something altogether different and merge with the outside world. In reality, we changed much more than we knew. During the epidemic, the levels of pathogens in the air had gradually increased until they'd penetrated every corner of the city. They drifted from one town to the next, seeping into our saliva, our respiratory systems, bloodstream, even into our glandular secretions. Some people died, while others were brought to this vile-smelling building. Many of the afflicted developed complications, while others responded to the massive doses of medication and somehow managed to stay alive, setting in motion their irreversible transformation. What people feared most may not have been death, but rather the prospect of undergoing changes that were beyond their control. Will people still recognize us? This question came from the man in the next bed. He had put into words the feeling of confusion that troubled us all, but no one had a good answer. Our sense of disorientation had begun with the nurse. One afternoon, she entered the ward wearing a white mask that covered half of her face so that only her eyes showed. She told us we would all have to leave by noon the next day. Her tone was brusque, and it sounded like she was giving an order. You're well now. A patient who'd been asleep in a corner of the room called out, Are we virus-free? Can we cross back over the border and go back to where we came from? There aren't any spare beds here. That was all the nurse had to say before she turned and left the room. The door shut behind her and the room seemed gloomier than ever. That night, it was not the pain, but the unsettled atmosphere that kept us awake. I thought about my family's black cat, which had always liked to sleep on my bed. I lived alone in my apartment with its predictably feeble lamplight and its dependably hard mattress. There were no superfluous sounds, no superfluous odors. And I don't remember when it began, but at some point I realized I preferred to stay inside that room, reeking of disinfectant, and sleep in the company of the other 7 with whom I had nothing to talk about. Maybe we've taken too much medication and used too much disinfectant, and it's weakened our immune systems. That's why everything seems to have changed beyond recognition. The patient in the bed opposite mine offered this suggestion after a long pause. Someone else added, Once we leave, we'll recover our strength. Before I drifted off to sleep, I wondered whether the anxiety that was nagging at me was just a common sequela of this mysterious virus. The etiology of the virus has been discovered. It is not idiopathic, intoned the attending physician from his chair in the ice-cold room. The changes might have first emerged in the secluded corners of town I'd noticed hidden among countless gray buildings. On my last day of vacation, the persistent cough and dizziness that had been with me for several weeks began to intensify, and the rawness in my throat grew until it was bigger than the world my body occupied. I hailed a cab, but I couldn't begin to describe the location of the hospital, and I had to rely on the driver to take me where he thought I should go. They carried me into a room with only one window, removed my clothes, and stuck all kinds of tubes into me until my skin was covered in purple and blue bruises. Every day, at set times, they fed me different colored medicines and rubbed my body in a very particular way. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. There was nothing that wasn't satisfactory. In fact, under the circumstances, it was impossible to imagine better care. This was clearly an effect of the drugs, as one glance at the attending physician's square-shaped glasses confirmed. Solitary people are highly susceptible to these virulent forms of influenza, the doctor explained. Even if they could bring the infection temporarily under control, it didn't mean the patient would recover. There was still a greater than 50% chance of a relapse. Without lifestyle changes, a full recovery would be impossible. Lonely people often have deficient immune systems, and their bodies can harbor all manner of diseases. As if reciting from a textbook, he gave a detailed description of various viruses. The snow-white wall behind him was covered with gaudy posters, one of which depicted a cross-section of the human body that featured the organs and their names. Another illustrated several ways of preventing disease, including hand washing, gargling, and the wearing of surgical masks. I had a vague sense the doctor was right. Only by strengthening people's social networks can we stop the spread of viruses. The force of the doctor's speech produced an unreal ringing in my ears. The nurse escorted me out of his office and into another room, where I completed the discharge procedure. They returned the clothing I'd had on when I entered the hospital and stuffed into my hands a white envelope that hadn't been mine. During the recovery period, infected individuals may not return to their original towns of residence, as there remains some uncertainty regarding the extent to which pathogens may be lying dormant in those places. The nurse repeated what the doctor had said and pulled a key out of an envelope. We've arranged new housing for you. In addition to basic furnishings, the unit is equipped with a father, a mother-in-law, a husband, and a younger brother. She wrote down the address and told me for the third time, go and concentrate on getting better. Nothing is more important than your health. Wearing a sweater that was permeated with the smell of the hospital and holding my plain white envelope, I walked down the long, narrow corridor. At the very end was a point of light. It came from an outdoor parking lot beside a road filled with an endless stream of cars. That was the world outside the hospital. I stood on the pedestrian island in the center of the road and looked back to see that the nurse who'd brought my medications, the discharge nurse, the attending physician, and the custodian were all standing at the end of the corridor waving goodbye. Their arms traced similar arcs. Their eyes flashed with the same slyness, and I suspected they were somehow related to each other.
So before the Q&A section, I would like to ask Andrea something about the translation process. As far as I know, Andrea, apart from her translation work, she is a poet. So to me, writer and translator has some contradictions or some conflict. You have a writer's mind, and you have a writer's mind, and you have another mind of translator. Do you think that there is some conflict between two mindsets, or you think two mindsets can be cooperative with each other?
Yeah, yesterday at lunch, Lai-Chu brought this question to me, and she said, do you think there's a difference between a writer's mind and a translator's mind? And I said, oh no, I think they're the same. for me, in a way, I experienced it as the same because I'm writing. But she said, you said, no, there's a difference, and you think the difference is...
Egos of writers.
Right, ego, right. Yeah, the writer has an ego, the translator can't. The translator does not, you have to lose the ego. And that got me thinking about how do I feel, what do I think about writing? In some way, maybe I feel that there is a loss of ego in writing as well. The work, which is maybe very old-fashioned, but what you're writing kind of moves through you. And it's almost, you are making it, but it's really about the work. It's not about you, it's the work. So when you're translating, it's always about the work. And when you write something, when I write something myself, it's external, and it came from me, but I can't, I try to disengage my ego from it because I care about it and I want it to be good. And so I think that's where I feel the similarity. Where the difference is that
if I don't have the option of changing something. But if I'm translating it, if I don't get to have like a better idea, that doesn't happen. I know what I need to write, or I have an outline in a sense, right? I have that structure, that skeleton, and so then my job is to try to embody that and to flesh it out. But I feel like when I'm translating, I'm writing in your, here I'm trying to write in your voice, and when I'm writing my own things, I'm writing in my own voice. But it's coming from a very, the places are very close. If you can, kind of picture that, they're right next to each other.
In the translation process, you have to imitate another writer's voice, and other writers' the writing styles. So I think it is very difficult part of the job. And the second question is to the translation of the Kite family. I found that you pay much attention to translate the names of character. For example, in the Water Chair Forest, you pay much attention to translate the English name of Lammo to be wooden, and the brothers of Lammo is his Chinese name is Lam Fa. Fa in Cantonese is has something about the meaning of which about money. So Andrea has an idea to translate it in which. What is the difficult part, the most difficult part to translate this book? Because I think it is not a very easy job for you. Of course, you are a very professional translator, and every book to you is hard to translate, but the Kite family consume you about a year to translate. So what is the difficult part, the most difficult part to translate this book?
Probably the names. I think the names, because in every other, just about every other thing that I've translated, I transliterated the names. The Chinese names I transliterate, the Chinese names into pinyin, and also I've been working with actually I Li Bihua, but I transliterated everything into a Mandarin equivalent or an older equivalent. But in this case, it seemed really clear that you were working allegorically with the names. The names were they weren't just names, they meant something, and they were important to the content of the story and what the characters were like. So I couldn't just say, Lin Mu, when that would have been Mandarin, and that would have been terrible, that would have been the wrong thing for a Hong Kong story. But then I didn't want to just go with Lom or something. I was like, well, no, that would be, then the English readers aren't going to get it. They aren't going to get that this guy whose name is Wood is going to turn into a chair, which, and that his brother, Fa, or, it's like Fa Cai, get rich. Well, they're not going to get that there's a pun there. So, yeah, I was very fortunate that, that rich, the diminutive of Richard is the same as Fa. That was very convenient. And it's very convenient that Woods is a last name, so Lin, just went straight to Woods. And I sort of cheated, right? It's not exactly Lin Mu, but it's, Forest could be a name, and same as, Woods can be a surname. So I went with that. Some of the characters and some of the stories, it was harder to find an English equivalent. Sometimes I had to think about, what was the metaphoric significance of it. And I would always look for names that resonated in English in some way, somehow were similar to the resonances in the Chinese. So honestly, that was the hardest part, because it wasn't this automatic transliteration, and I just keep going. It took a great deal of thought, and some were easier than others for sure. I think Chen Mo and Chen Nian were the hardest ones. Those ones I really struggled over, but ultimately with a lot of kind of crowdsourcing and a lot of discussions, it worked out.
Because in the writing process, I didn't pay much attention to the names. most of the time the names and other other parts in the fiction just comes very naturally from the unconscious part of the brain or comes from intuition. So I didn't think about that. In future, my fiction will be translated into another language, so I didn't care much about all the translation issue. So maybe we just open to the audience for them to ask questions if they have any questions to ask.
In the middle introduction, you mentioned how it was important for you to find your voice in writing. Now that your story has been translated, how do you find your voice being transformed when it's portrayed in English? And the second question is, you're obviously bilingual, and do you feel like there's some part that of the story you wanted to change? Because you can, or it's about the relationship, or almost like a power struggle between the writer and the translator. Is there any examples of that?
So the question is for me?
More for you.
Actually, I don't really quite remember the first question, but maybe I asked the second, but I answered the second question at first. Actually, Andrea and me work very closely in the translation process. So she asked me many questions about the content of all the fictions. And I think she don't want to misunderstood, or she want to make sure every part of the fiction will be very close to what I really want to express. So we work very closely. I don't think there is any part has been changed in the translation process, but I think that Chinese and English is two kind of language that there is something cannot be translated, can never be translated. For example, in English, in the system of English, it's very clear, systematic, and everything put in they always put right thing in right place in English. But in Chinese, everything is more abstract, and you will not be very clear about the time, about the states of mind, about the moments, about the exactly what you mean in the dialogue. So when Andrea asked me some questions, I don't know, sometimes I don't know how to answer because during the writing process, I don't want to make it so clear because in the writing process, there is something I want to keep it in the unconscious parts. I think it is the most poetic part, and I don't want to change it. And I think it cannot be kept in English version, or it will be turned out to be another thing.
Where do you get your ideas to write? Did they just come from your mind, or do you ever think about things and then you write about them, but in a different way?
My ideas comes from everything of the world, from daily life. One of my story, it is not included in the Kite family. One of my story is come from my cat. Yes. So the whole short story is about the cat. I have a baby cat who passed away when he was very small, and then I adopted another cat. So in the short story, I wrote about the whole thing, but actually this is another story. It is not the same with the reality. In the short story, the cat becomes fatter and fatter, and the cat is larger and larger, and the size of the cat is similar to the main character. And at the end of the story, the cat has to escape from the society because the society will kill the cat as this is a too large animal in that society. It will become very dangerous. So the cat just escaped from the society with his owner. So that's the short story about it. It come from a cat. Okay, the cat's time is over. Do you have any questions for my translator, Andrea?
I got one. I'm assuming you translated other works from Mandarin that are originally written in Mandarin Chinese?
Yeah.
Was there a different process or considerations around doing something that's Cantonese? I know the writing is similar, but like phonetically, they're sort of different, right? For example, with the names, it's sort of like, okay, as you said, right, the phonetics don't always work out.
Right. It came up when I was looking at the names. There were a few names that I actually did transliterate according to Cantonese because they weren't really they didn't have any seem to have much metaphoric. They were just names, just common names, and so that was important. That I transliterate them as Cantonese, not Mandarin. Another place that it came up, though, is you used an idiom at one point, and I didn't know what to make of it because it was, again, was a metaphor, and so when Lai-Chu was reviewing the manuscript, she said, "Gee, I don't think you understand this very well." So this is a Cantonese expression, which I wasn't familiar with, and I had, it had popped up in my dictionaries and stuff. So, but generally, it's, my experience of Chinese, as somebody that learned it, learned it as an adult, in college, I have a sense of the language, and I have a sense of sort of the written language as, as something with really deep roots, and so that when I look at the text, I just have a sense of that. I have the sense of the shape of the sentence, the syntax, and all of that stuff, because I'm a poet, I look at those things, right? I think about word choice, I think about metaphor, I think about syntax, and and I'm very aware of the fluidity of Han Lai-Chu's writing, and he talked about, there's this ambiguity you have in Chinese that in English you can't do it. You have to pick a tense, you have to have a subject, and it gets really tedious sometimes writing in English because you have to commit to these things. But I find that maybe is something that's throughout the different Chinese languages / dialects, that's always the case. You see a text, you have to commit immediately tense. Even though as you're reading it, it's sort of in this eternal cinematic present. When you put it into English, you have to think about what's it going to be and what's going to sound natural and what's not going to call attention to itself. That's not the point. So, yeah.
About translating the voices of the writers, is it usually more intuitive, or does that involve more skills?
Yeah, definitely. And that's where the translator's mind intersects with the writer's mind in that sense of, how do I, it's subjective, and what's my experience of this, what's my reading of this, and how do I feel, and it's very much it's performative, right? You're playing a part, you're playing a role.
There's a character named Bro, Papa, Pa or Papa in your in your fictions. So is there any specific meaning for you? What do you, yeah.
This character, this name appeared in a fiction when I was right in my very young. When I was very young, I remember when I was 15 and I wrote a fiction. It is called 陈大文與國耀明. In Cantonese, it is two names of the boys, and one of the character is called Papa. So, and after that, I always use this name in my different fictions. It just represents a type of girl, but I can't very clear to explain which type of girl is Papa. But I think in this world there is a type of girl. She's Papa. So I put this character into my fiction from time to time and repeatedly.
If nobody else has a question, I actually have a question. Lai-Chu, your fiction is very dreamlike, and like people who grow too many teeth in their mouths, or men who turn into chairs. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how your stories that get rooted in reality, how you take them in these imaginative, dreamlike directions. And then maybe Andrea could comment a little bit about like translating that kind of absurdity and dreaminess into prose in English.
To me, my fictions, I don't know what's the reason for the others think that it is dreamlike. Many people say that it is dreamlike, but I don't really understand, because to me, it is my own reality. Of course, all of us share a common reality, a more objective reality, but everyone have their own reality. It is a bit different from the common reality. When we were very small, we have to go to school and we have to be educated to be a more sensible human being, and after that we can be part of the society and get well with everyone in the society. And the first thing we have to learn when we are very small is how to tell lie. If the children, or if someone, he or she don't know how to tell lie, he cannot be live in the society very well. So there is many lies between us or near us, and in our daily life there is so many illusions around us. In my fictions, I try to take out the reality underneath these kind of illusions. So when I am writing, I think what I write is what I'm writing is the real thing, but not something in a dream.
Yeah, I just sort of want to second that. I mean, I experience this as very concrete, the stories, as I'm reading them. I mean, everything that's happening is, it's real, it's concrete, it's strange, and it's, often really disquieting, but it's all, there's so much physical detail in these stories that's the anchor for it. So that, I don't actually experience it as a dream state. I mean, it's more like this is a world with, with hard surfaces and real things happening. It's just, it's not the world that we're used to necessarily. It has some intersection with it, but it's, it's all in the details.
mentioned that there were things about your story that Andrea had to work through that you just intuited, that they came out of your unconsciousness, that you hadn't thought about them. And now that you're working on a new novel for a number of years and having gone through this translation process, working very closely with the translator, I'm wondering if anything has shifted in the new novel based on your experience working with Andrea.
Because I encounter some writer's blocks when I'm writing my new novel, so I don't know what it will be, so I'm not sure. Will the experience of translation will bring some new elements to my new novels?
And thanks for getting back to that question, that issue, because earlier you said, well, what's the difference between a translator's mind and a writer's mind? And I said, well, they're right next to each other. There's a lot of overlap. But one thing that does, actually, that is the difference right there. You pointed to, in the translation, I have to be very clear, and I ask you lots of questions in order to know what the underlying intent is and what you're getting at. And that's the difference. Because when I do my own writing, trust me, it's very spontaneous, and I'm not thinking about it. It doesn't have to make sense, It doesn't. It makes sense later, and you have to. It's your reader, and sometimes it's your reader who makes sense of it, and the reader who has to ask all of these questions and to try to pinpoint it. Even if ultimately in the translation it doesn't have to be maybe quite so clear, but at least the translator has to be clear on what it is. So if there is a difference, maybe that. And it's not so much a difference between English and Chinese, although English is certainly, fussier and more linear. But it's really the difference between, am I understanding what you're saying, and I want to see, try to understand as best I can through the writing, and then double check with you. But when you write your own, when you're doing your own thing, it just comes out, right? Simply because.
I want to tell you a secret right now. Every time when I send back the answer to you, I always suspect myself, is it the real answer I have? Or I want to answer Andrea, so I will create a new meaning of my fiction. So I can give a more reasonable answer to my Andrea. I always suspect myself.
Publisher answer that question.
I think Chris, maybe you can go back to the origins of the project.
We had a series of authors that we were interested in being part of the series, and we had a series of translators who we'd worked with before, and they just, knowing work that Andrea had been involved in, they matched very well.
Okay. To have two very compatible people working together.
We had them fill out a very long survey.
I would like to thank Lai-Chu and Andrea for giving us a real insight into the works and the minds of an author and a translator. And I'd like to encourage everyone to stay around and chat and ask more questions and buy a book for the author and translator to sign, and eat, drink, and be merry. So thank you all for coming.